On this episode, I want to teach you how to communicate your feelings when no one else has taught you to do so. Feelings are not problems. They're not something that needs to be remedied. They're something to actually be soothed and to be listened to. And it's something that's in need of a hug from you. It is in need of regulation. It's in need to be heard, to be validated, to be seen. Believe it or not, ignoring and resisting the conversation that you have with your feelings is actually a form of self-abandonment. And this isn't something that you taught yourself. This is something that others have likely taught you. But disassociation is a disservice to your nervous system. And if we think about emotions as chemical residue of past experiences and chemical feedback, the stronger the emotional event that happened, the stronger it leaves an impression on our brain and our body through our nervous system, through pains, through trial, through suffering of the mind, of the body. And those memories are maintaining that connection because it's afraid that it's going to happen again. And it's always on this alert mode because it doesn't want you to go through that again and again. It's your body's way of trying to make sure that you are safe. But those memories and that emotional need that you're not paying attention to is going to sustain in those relationships until you hear it out, until you take care of it. And when you react and acknowledge the response that your body is having or the wiring of your brain, then that's when you can kick it out of that default state and you can have a better response for yourself. There's a quote that says, let me find it here. Your brain becomes an artifact of your old thinking, and it becomes easier to think in the same ways. So you are conditioning your brain into your past problems. One of the things that we have to stop doing is negotiating with our anger, negotiating with our discontent. We think that if we can bargain with it and say, okay, well, if somebody else does that, then I'll have the right to be upset for you. If somebody does this, then I can lay down this boundary for us. When you're putting bargaining skills in with your emotions, you're basically just avoiding the emotion and making it feel like it doesn't belong there. And only if they do a certain action, then you're allowed to be upset, or then you're allowed to communicate with it. And the truth is, you can communicate even if you're in the wrong, even if your emotions are ridiculous, even if you're on your period, even if you've said it 15,000 times, you're still allowed to reiterate and to state your emotions. And there is no such thing as putting conditions on what your emotions are allowed to feel, or how long they're allowed to stay there, or where they're allowed to be. You're just creating more anxiety for your body, and you're telling your body that it's not worthy of feeling those emotions in the moment, and that it has to be justified in order to be heard. But you have to hear those feelings out, and you have to understand that they're coming to you for a reason. And if you don't respond to them, if you don't have a talk with your emotions, they're going to come out in different ways. And a lot of the ways that my emotions come out is in resentment, thinking like, oh, well, they didn't do this and they didn't do that, and instead of talking about it, it just continues to happen, and then I'm resentful because it continues to happen. It could come out in anger and shouting and yelling and causing fights, even when you don't want to cause a fight because you just didn't want to talk about it in the moment that it happened. And it can come in the form of depression, when you feel like no matter how much you say it, you're kind of alone and nobody wants to hear you. And you have to consider your emotions a close guide, like a spirit guide, like an angel that follows you, like somebody who is attached to you and wants the best for you. That's why they're there, and you have to let them come home to you. I think when you're upset and your emotions are coming through, the most important thing is to acknowledge the place that you're currently at. Instead of trying to run from it, instead of trying to distract yourself from it, to disassociate from it by doing certain things, by running to try to change your emotions, the more self-aware that you could be of this happening, and not only self-aware of it happening, but how it's affecting your negative self-talk, how it's affecting your anxiety. All of that stuff is so important for you to acknowledge. And anxiety becomes all-consuming, and it will lead to your stagnation. And the more that you don't do about it, the more you will not continue to do about it. Does that make sense? Like, you have to spend some time with your thinking and kind of relate and understand the level of self-sabotage that you do with your feelings, like how you've been practicing ignoring your emotions and what that looks like for you personally, because we all do it in different ways. And this will first allow you to be ready to sit down and have that conversation with the emotion once you can become aware of what you do. And some of us are aware, we just don't know how to change it, right? But if you've never been aware of what you're doing and how you're avoiding it, you can't fix the problem. So if you want to have a conversation with yourself about your emotions, I want you to first think about this. Emotions are information, not instructions. So just because you want to rage and you want to yell and you want to do all of these things and you're sad doesn't mean that you need to go kill yourself. It doesn't mean that you need to lash out at somebody. It doesn't mean that you need to stop talking. Those are information. They're not instructions to live. And I want you to ask yourself some questions that I'm going to name for you. And after you're ready to have a conversation that you've been avoiding, I want you to say this to yourself before you start, that your emotions are information and they're not instructions. Just because you feel lonely doesn't mean that you're alone and you have no one to talk to. Just because you're angry doesn't mean that you are allowed to scream and yell and do whatever you want to because of that emotion, okay? Those are instructions of how your body and mind is feeling and not instructions to take action on. So I want you to ask yourself these questions whenever you're ready. Do you understand where that emotion is coming from? Is this an emotion that you picked up because of someone, or you picked up from someone else, or you picked up in a certain place that you're now carrying on? Like, if I'm upset because I feel like my partner didn't hear me, am I really upset because he's a bad listener and he didn't want to hear me all the time? Or am I upset because as a child, nobody wanted to listen to me or care about my opinion or talk, and now every time that doesn't happen, it roots some deep-seated mission in me that says no one's listening to me, I'm not feeling heard, I'm not feeling seen, I'm not feeling validated. And where are the sensations in your body? After you get upset, do you feel migraines, tension headaches, stomach pains? What kind of senses do you feel in your body, the sensations that happen when you get upset? Can you give yourself compassion for not only the old version that went through that origin story, but the current version of you that feels ignored and feels left out? And can you acknowledge that you are there now and you see the path, not only that led you to doing it today, but also the path where you're at today? And can you recognize that you're here right now? And can you thank the feelings for continuing to do that for you, to continue to do survival mode for you? And can you understand that they're there because of survival instincts, because it's trying to make sure you don't go through the same thing, and that they're ultimately protectors of you? And can you allow the release of what happened to you, maybe not from the past, but maybe just from today, and then work your way back? Can you allow yourself to restate to yourself that you're no longer in that danger, in that position, in that situation, and that you are safe, and that things can now play out differently? Try it out.